Welcome to Wicked Wednesday with the Collective. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do so. Also, like this video and turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything that we release. Tonight we'll be listening to Scared to Death by Dr. Rot off of Reddit's No Sleep. My ex-husband always used to jump scare me. It was one of the things I hated the most about him. Well, he's been doing it again. The most frustrating part is that he's been dead for 5 years. At first I was just slightly put off by it. It was in the earliest days of dating him. If he'd be at my apartment and maybe I excused myself to use the bathroom, he'd be waiting in some doorway or shadow to jump out and scare the shit out of me. It was even worse at his house. He lived way out in the middle of freaking nowhere, and I was pretty much always low-level freaked out there. But then he'd leap out from around a corner and I'd be so scared and pissed off, I'd be ready to break up with him, right then and there. In retrospect, that's obviously what I should have done, but I guess we all ignore our own inner voices sometimes, don't we? Well, obviously, or there wouldn't be so many people posting on No Sleep trying to get other people to help them with some dire problem they created by doing something stupid. And yet, here we are. I don't know why I let it slide, honestly, and that was only one of the many things about him that were terrible. Nonetheless, I repeatedly told him to cut that shit out, and I repeatedly did nothing when he failed to cut that shit out. Eventually, I even married him. He had 2 kids from a former marriage who stayed with us a lot, and then, when they were there were also nieces and nephews staying over too. I always liked when there was a house full of kids. It made the old drafty falling down farmhouse we lived in slightly less terrifying. But, count on my ex-husband to fuck up a good thing. We were in the living room with all the kids. It was late at night. The kids were all still rowdy and playing around. He and I were on the couch, and there was a scary movie playing which nobody was really paying attention to. But Eric, my ex, got this funny look in his face and said quietly to me, "Watch this." Then he put his finger to his lips to express that I should keep quiet. I instantly knew he was probably thinking of orchestrating some huge jump scare on all these kids. Even though he had actually given me warning at first, I just didn't want him to do it. The youngest child there was only 4. I knew it would immediately kill the good vibes. I tried to protest, but he shushed me again and then scurried off to some other part of the house, unnoticed by any of the kids. I sighed angrily. I even tried to warn the kids, but they were all hyper and not listening. Seconds later, Eric showed up outside the screen door and revved his chainsaw. The kids lost it. One of his daughters actually blasted backwards and got airborne in her desperation to get away from the door. The 4-year-old, of course, burst into hysterical tears, and soon they were all crying. Now, some of you reading this are probably laughing and thinking, that's actually epic. But the thing was, it was just so damn old. He did this dumb shit all the time. Plus, the world can really be boiled down into precisely 2 types of people. People who think it's funny to scare 4-year-olds so they cry, and people who don't. So, listeners, I suppose you've sorted yourselves into teams at this point. Fast forward a few years from the dumbass chainsaw incident, and Eric and I had our own son. The thing about our son was that he had major, and I mean major, heart problems at birth. He had to have open heart surgery, and also had a whole shitload of other complications. Now that's not the point of the story, but just know that the first 8 months of his life were very touch and go. Then he was finally doing better, stronger, able to do more. He was 9 months old and sitting on my lap facing me. We were just playing and chattering at each other when Eric lunged up behind him, grabbed him, and shouted. My little son did that thing little kids do, where for one full second you don't know if they're going to burst into hysterical tears or burst into laughter. In the end, my son burst into laughter, and so did Eric. I, on the other hand, was livid. Who jump scares an infant, first of all? And secondly, who the hell jump scares an infant heart patient? That was probably the rudest I've ever been to Eric about the jump scare thing, but he just kept laughing. Laughed the whole thing off like he always did. Anyway, That wasn't why I divorced him, but we were divorced by the time our son was 3. The shared custody arrangement of our son went about how you'd expect things to go with a douchebag, but life plodded along. When our son was about 10, he went through this phase where he started getting insanely jumpy. I mean, he just seemed incredibly paranoid. If I walked close to him or made any sudden movements, he would flinch, almost like he thought I was going to hit him. At first, it actually sort of hurt my feelings because I'd never hit my son, and I didn't understand why he was being so jumpy with me. Then it started to scare me because I wondered if someone else was hitting him. Maybe he was being bullied at school. He didn't go to his father's all that much, and I didn't imagine Eric would ever hit him, but what if? And then I remembered the jump scaring. I finally thought to ask my son about it. He immediately revealed that yes, his dad jump scared him all the time. "It's kind of annoying, Mom," he told me. Well, yeah, no shit, I thought. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about it. I was so mad. He only spent limited time with our son. Why was Eric spending it jump scaring him so much that it was making him nervous and anxious all the time? What a shitheel. The problem was that Eric was the sort of co-parent that if I asked him to help with anything or to back me up on anything, he would do the exact opposite, just to be spiteful. Asking nicely never worked with him. So, if it wasn't something a court would force him to stop, I really didn't even bother asking because I knew he would just get worse. And let's face it, no family court is going to give a shit about jump scaring. I was mad as hell, but there wasn't much I could really do about it. Fortunately, he took the liberty of dying, and that took care of that. I don't mean to sound callous. Obviously, my son struggled with the death of his father, but the jumpiness subsided basically instantly after he found out his dad was dead. Now, if your child's mental health improves because you died, it's possible you were a shitty parent. I'm just saying. Anyhow, another 5 years went by and then I wrecked my car because a cat jumped out in front of me. I sat there in shock, gripping the steering wheel of my wrecked car. As I tried to catch my breath and make sense of what just happened, I noticed something strange. The air around me had grown cold, and a chill ran down my spine. I looked around, but no one was there. I tried to shake it off and focus on getting out of the car, but then I heard it. A low, guttural laugh echoed around me, and I froze. It sounded like my ex-husband's laugh, the man who had tormented me for years, emotionally and physically. I felt a surge of anger and fear wash over me, and I knew I needed to get out of there. I managed to escape the car and run to my house, but the eerie feeling never left me. Over the next few days, strange things started to happen. I would hear footsteps in the hallway, even though no one was there. Objects would move on their own, and the temperature would drop suddenly. As I walked by the window glass of a shop on a sunny day, my own reflection seemed to lunge at me and scared the life out of me. A drinking glass exploded in the corner. Doors slammed at night. Books fell from the shelves, landing with a thunk and a plume of dust. As the days passed, I realized it wasn't just any spirit haunting me. It was my ex-husband, and he was using his ghostly powers to jump scare me from beyond the grave. The realization left me terrified. If he could do all of this, what else was he capable of? I tried to find help, but no one believed me. They thought I was just imagining things or suffering from post-traumatic stress. Sleep-deprived and desperate, I found myself in a police station explaining the whole thing to a frazzled cop. He glared at me tersely, and I felt like an idiot. A gunshot rang out, even as I told my story. The entire precinct jumped at what ended up being a gun going off by accident. Even so, the cop didn't believe me, of course, and sent me out into the rainy night, terrified of my own shadow. I was alone, trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't escape from. Now, as I sit here in my dark and silent house, I can feel his presence all around me. I was awoken moments ago when my bedroom door cracked violently into the wall. I knew that at any moment he could jump scare me again, and this time I fear it won't have been just a harmless prank. I'm sitting here curled in a ball, shaking as I type this. I'm just trying to get it out. Trying to leave behind my story because I know it's only a matter of time. Until he scares me to death. Well, got through that one.